You walk into a room, you scan the crowd, and within 3 seconds, your brain has already done something you were never taught to do. It has sorted everyone in that room into a hierarchy. That person near the window? The logo on the bag, filed under trying. The man by the bar? The watch pushing out from under the cuff, filed under arrived, or wants you to think so. The woman in the corner talking quietly to two people who are clearly hanging on every word she says? No visible logos, nothing obvious, nothing loud. Filed under dangerous. You did not learn this sorting system in school. Nobody taught it to you explicitly, but you run it automatically every single day in every single room you enter. Today we are going to pull that system apart. We are going to look at why the people who actually own the game refuse to wear its uniform. We are going to examine the 3-level architecture of status signaling that most people never even know exists. And we are going to talk about why strategically disappearing from the status competition produces more real authority than any luxury item ever could. This is not a conversation about fashion. This is a conversation about power, about psychology, about the invisible rules that separate the people who perform wealth from the people who actually build it. And if you have ever spent money to make someone else feel a certain way about you, this one is going to hit somewhere uncomfortable. Let us start at the beginning. In evolutionary biology, signaling is how animals communicate value without direct confrontation. The peacock grows a tail that is physically expensive to carry, difficult to maintain, and makes it harder to escape predators. That tail is not a mistake of evolution. It is the point. The cost is the message. Only a genuinely healthy, genuinely strong peacock can afford to walk around with that kind of liability attached to its body. The lion does not explain its strength. It roars. The sound alone communicates what 1,000 words could not. Human beings do the same thing. We just swap biology for capital. We buy things we do not need at prices that make no logical sense, specifically to prove that we can absorb the financial damage of buying them. This is called costly signaling. And the entire luxury industry, every logo, every flagship store, every velvet rope, is built on exploiting this single psychological mechanism. You are not buying a $40,000 watch to tell time. You are buying a receipt that you can wear on your wrist and flash in a room full of strangers to say, I had $40,000 and I chose to burn it on this, which means there is more where that came from. That is the transaction. That is what is actually being sold. And for most of human history, this system worked. If you could genuinely afford the signal was roughly accurate. The king wore the crown. The merchant wore the gold chain. The message and the reality aligned. But then something broke. Credit happened. Mass manufacturing happened. Global luxury brands discovered that if you democratize the logo, sell it at enough price points, create enough entry-level products, you can sell the signal to people who cannot actually afford what the signal implies. Now the signal is lying. Now you have a room full of people broadcasting wealth they do not have, to impress people they do not know, to generate respect they will not keep, using money they cannot afford to spend. And the people at the very top of the actual wealth hierarchy looked at this room and made a very deliberate decision. They left. This is where counter-signaling begins, and this concept is the engine of everything we are going to talk about today. When you are at the bottom of the hierarchy, you signal upward. You display whatever markers of status you can afford, or borrow, or fake, to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be perceived. When you are in the middle, you signal laterally. You maintain your position, you keep up. You ensure that the people around you continue to see you as one of them. But when you reach the absolute apex, when your power is real, structural, and self-sustaining, signaling becomes unnecessary, worse than unnecessary. It becomes counterproductive. Because here's the structural truth that the luxury industry does not want you to understand. Signaling only works when the people you are trying to impress care about the signal. And the only people who still care about logos are the people in the middle of the hierarchy. The people at the top stopped caring a long time ago, which means if you are still flashing signals at them, you are not speaking their language. You are marking yourself as someone who is still fighting a battle they already won. The billionaire in the plain gray t-shirt is not making a fashion statement. He is making a power statement. He is saying, I am so far beyond this competition that I do not even need to pick up a weapon. I have already won. The game you are playing is not the game I am playing. And the fact that you cannot tell the difference by looking at me, that gap in your perception, that is my advantage. That t-shirt is not humility. That t-shirt is the most aggressive flex in the room. Now let us build the architecture. Because status signaling does not operate as a single system, it operates on 3 distinct levels. And understanding these levels is how you start to see the invisible map of every room you will ever walk into. Level 1 is mass signaling. This is the logo on the outside of the bag, the name on the car, the first-class cabin selfie posted before the flight even boards. The audience is everyone. The goal is recognition from strangers. You are not trying to communicate anything specific. You are trying to broadcast a general frequency. Rich, successful, arrived. The problem with level 1 is that it is the most expensive and the least efficient form of status communication that exists. You're paying premium prices to send a message to people whose opinion of you will have zero impact on your actual life. You are buying attention from an audience that cannot do anything for you. Level 2 is tribe signaling. Here, the logo disappears. The cut becomes the signal. The fabric becomes the signal. The specific shade, the particular silhouette, the almost invisible detail that only someone inside the same world would recognize. You are not signaling to the masses. You are signaling to the people who can read the code. The mass audience looks at this person and sees a plain sweater. Someone who knows sees a piece that took 18 months on a wait list and costs more than most people's rent. The signal has not disappeared. It has become encrypted. And the encryption itself is the point. You are now only communicating with people who are already inside the room you want to be in. Level 3 is invisible signaling. At this level, what you wear is almost irrelevant. The signal is not aesthetic. It is behavioral. It is structural. It is who answers when you call. It is which meeting gets rescheduled when you cannot make it. It is the specific way a room shifts when you walk in. Not because of what you are wearing, but because of what people know you control. At level 3, power stops being something you display. It becomes something you generate, passively, continuously, without effort. And the critical thing to understand is this. You cannot buy your way from level 1 to level 3. You can only earn your way there. Every dollar you spend trying to accelerate the signal is a dollar that is not building the structural reality that would make this signal unnecessary. But there is a dimension to this that goes beyond psychology. It is tactical, it is defensive, and it is something that almost nobody talks about honestly. Visibility is a liability. When you broadcast wealth loudly, you do not just attract admiration, you attract 3 specific categories of friction that quietly drain your time, your money, and your energy in ways that are very difficult to trace back to their source. The first category is takers. Takers are not always criminals. Sometimes they are, but more often they are just opportunistic. They see the signal you are broadcasting and they file you away as a resource. You become a target for social engineering, for overpriced proposals, for opportunities that require your money more than your judgment, for legal pressure because visible wealth makes you look worth pursuing in a dispute. Your perceived affluence becomes a map of vulnerabilities that other people spend significant mental energy trying to exploit. The second category is hunters. Hunters are professionals, salespeople, wealth managers, consultants, fundraisers, real estate agents, private bankers. They are paid specifically to find and convert people who look like what you are broadcasting. You are not a person to a hunter. You are a qualified lead, a pipeline entry, a commission waiting to be unlocked. When you make yourself visible, you do not just attract one hunter. You attract entire ecosystems of people whose entire professional infrastructure is optimized to extract money from people who look like you. The third category is the hungry. The hungry are often the people already in your life, the friend who starts expecting you to pay, the family member who interprets your financial security as a communal resource, the colleague whose behavior toward you shifts the moment they recalibrate where you sit in the financial hierarchy. These shifts are rarely explicit. They are subtle. They accumulate. They change the texture of relationships in ways that are very slow to reverse. The more loudly you signal status, the more of all three categories you attract. The more gravitational pull you generate around yourself from people who want something from you. Real wealth does not build billboards. Real wealth builds moats. Now, here is where this becomes personal, because this is not abstract philosophy. This is mathematics. Every dollar you spend on a depreciating asset, and almost every status symbol is a depreciating asset, that dollar is no longer working for you. It is gone. You received something in return, but what you received was not an asset. It was a moment, a feeling, a stranger's glance, a brief spike of something that felt like validation. And the question you have to be honest enough to ask yourself is, what is that actually worth to you? Because the truly wealthy are not wealthy because they earn more than everyone else. Some do, some do not. They are wealthy because they stopped paying the status tax. They stopped donating money to the performance. They redirected that capital toward things that compound: investments, relationships, skills, structural leverage, and they let time do the work. You are not poor because you do not earn enough. In many cases, you are poor because you are spending the difference on an audience that is not watching as closely as you think, to generate respect that evaporates the moment you leave the room. That is the tax. That is what the luxury industry never puts in the ad. So what do you actually do with this? There are three concrete shifts, not abstract philosophies, actual adjustments you can start making immediately in how you spend, how you present, and how you protect yourself. The first shift: pull your spending out of the public and into the private. Buy whatever you want, genuinely. This is not an argument for poverty aesthetics. But before every significant purchase, ask yourself one honest question. Who is this for? If the answer involves managing how strangers perceive you, you have your answer. You are not buying something for yourself. You are buying something for an audience. And audiences are expensive and never satisfied. Move your spending from visible to private, from public flex to personal taste, from things that broadcast to things that sustain. The second shift: build an identity that does not require the costume. This is the uncomfortable one. Strip it all away: the car, the clothes, the address, the watch, the lifestyle markers, and ask yourself who you are in the silence of that room. If the answer feels unstable, that instability is not a fashion problem. It is a foundation problem. The brands are acting as prosthetics for something structural that is missing, and no amount of external signal will permanently fill an internal gap. It will require constant feeding, constant upgrading, constant performance. That is not a strategy. That is a trap. The third shift: start treating invisibility as a competitive asset. When people underestimate you based on your appearance, that is leverage. Real leverage. You are receiving information about them. They sort by surface, while giving nothing real away about yourself. You are creating asymmetry. In any negotiation, any relationship, any room where power is being sorted, the person who is hardest to read has the structural advantage. When people overestimate you based on your appearance, that is liability. They expect things. They demand things. They feel entitled to things. And when the reality does not match the signal, the collapse is expensive in ways that go far beyond money. Be the least predictable person in the room, not unpredictable in behavior, unpredictable in category, impossible to place. That ambiguity is not a weakness. That ambiguity is a weapon. When you stop performing for the hierarchy, something genuinely strange happens. You become unreadable. People cannot place you in their mental taxonomy. They cannot assign you a value quickly. And because human beings are deeply uncomfortable with what they cannot immediately categorize, they pay more attention. They listen more carefully. They fill the ambiguity with their own projections. And people's projections of others are almost always more powerful than the reality. You stop being a consumer of status and start being a source of it. Because status, at its deepest level, is not about what you own. It is about what other people believe you could do if you wanted to. It is about perceived optionality, perceived capability, the sense that this person is operating on a level I cannot fully see. That perception cannot be purchased. It can only be built, slowly, structurally, by actually becoming the thing instead of constantly trying to look like it. The endgame is not to look rich. The endgame is to be unbothered. Enough assets that your baseline does not move when the market panics. Enough autonomy that you do not need anyone's approval to keep your life running. Enough internal foundation that your identity does not fracture the moment you take the costume off. At that point, the luxury brands stop being armor. They stop being proof. They become what they were always supposed to be: optional. Things you might choose or might not, based entirely on your own private logic, with zero reference to how it lands in the room. That is freedom, not the performance of it. The truly powerful are quiet because they have nothing left to prove. And the day you stop needing to prove something is the day the room starts organizing itself around you instead of the other way around. Next time, we're going to dismantle the most expensive mistake you are making right now: your inability to say no. We will break down the mathematics of opportunity cost. We will examine the filter that the top 1% uses to manage their time. And we will build the architecture of a rejection so clean, so precise, that it protects your future without destroying the relationship. If you want to own your life, you have to learn how to disappoint people on purpose. That is next.